If someone could save a child's life, would they do it? Of course they would. But what if after saving that child, she was forbidden from ever seeing her again? What if the child's aunt called her a worthless, homeless woman? What if she was thrown out of the house simply for loving the little girl too much? Chloe Bennett went through all of that. She was once a nurse, falsely accused of theft, stripped of her license, lost her home, and now lived under a bridge in Chicago during the bone-chilling winter. But even with nothing left, she kept one habit alive, donating blood. And during one donation, she discovered she shared the same rare blood type as the daughter of the most powerful mafia boss in the city, AB negative, found in less than 1% of the population. She donated her blood to save the child without asking for anything in return. She even refused the compensation money. But instead of being rewarded, she was cast out like a threat, falsely accused of being a criminal, forbidden from going near the very child whose life she had saved. This is her story, about a mafia boss as cold as ice who must choose between his family's prejudice and the calling of his heart, about a 5-year-old girl who taught the entire underworld a lesson about true love, and about an ending no one could have ever predicted. 6 months earlier, 5 o'clock in the morning, Chicago's winter wind cut through the streets like 1,000 frozen knives. Inside the homeless shelter on South Halsted Street, Chloe Bennett opened her eyes before the alarm even rang. She had learned to wake up early. In a place like this, the early risers got the warm water first. Chloe sat up slowly on the thin cot, her breath forming small clouds in the cold air. Around her, dozens of other homeless people still slept, their snores and coughs creating a sad symphony of desperation. She had been here for 3 months now, but she still could not get used to the smell. Sweat, mildew, and hopelessness all mixed together. She reached under her pillow and pulled out a worn leather wallet. Inside, there was no money, no credit cards, just one photograph, Ethan, her baby brother, 24 years old, but in the picture, he was still smiling like a teenager. Before the diagnosis, before everything fell apart, Chloe's fingers trembled as she touched his face through the cracked plastic cover. Congenital heart disease. The doctors said he needed surgery within the year, or his heart would give out completely. $80,000. That was the price of her brother's life. A number that might as well have been 80 million for someone sleeping in a homeless shelter. She closed her eyes, fighting back the tears that threatened to fall. 6 months ago, she had been a registered nurse at Chicago General Hospital. She had an apartment, a car, a future. Then her colleague Rachel, jealous of Chloe's popularity with patients, had hidden stolen painkillers in her locker. The accusation came swift and merciless. Theft of controlled substances. Her license was revoked before she could even defend herself. And while she was dealing with that nightmare, Ethan collapsed at work. Emergency surgery. Complications. More bills. The apartment went first, then the car, then her dignity, but not her spirit. Never her spirit. Chloe stood up and walked to the small bathroom area. She washed her face with cold water, then carefully brushed her hair and tied it back in a neat ponytail. Her clothes were old, her shoes had holes in them, but she made sure everything was clean and pressed. She had ironed her shirt last night using a pot of hot water and a flat book, because she still had one thing left to give. At 7:30, Chloe walked through the doors of the Chicago Blood Donation Center on Michigan Avenue. The warmth inside felt like heaven compared to the bitter cold outside. The nurse at the reception desk looked up and smiled immediately. "Chloe, it's you again." Linda, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes, shook her head in amazement. "You donate blood more regularly than people who have homes and steady jobs." Chloe smiled sadly as she signed in. "This is the only way I can still help someone," she said quietly. "I used to save lives as a nurse. Now this is all I have left." Linda's eyes softened. She opened her mouth to say something comforting, when suddenly, the phone on her desk rang loudly. "Chicago Blood Center. How may I?" Linda's face changed. Her eyes widened. Yes, I understand. AB negative? That's extremely rare, but let me check." Linda looked up at Chloe, then back at the phone. "Hold on, I might have someone right here." She hung up and turned to Chloe with an expression caught between hope and urgency. "Chloe, there's an emergency. A 5-year-old girl at Northwestern Memorial needs AB negative blood immediately. She's dying. You're the only match we have." Chloe did not hesitate. "Take me there. Now." At the same moment, Chloe rushed toward Northwestern Memorial, 15 miles away in the wealthy suburb of Lake Forest. Another world existed entirely. The Merino estate sat behind iron gates and stone walls, a fortress of wealth and power that most people in Chicago only whispered about. 3 stories of Italian architecture, surrounded by manicured gardens now covered in winter snow, beautiful on the outside, cold and empty on the inside. Rocco Marino stood at the window of his study, staring at nothing. At 36 years old, he was the most feared man in the city. His empire stretched across every corner of Chicago's underground, from the ports to the politicians. Men twice his age bowed when he entered a room. But right now, he felt utterly powerless. He caught his reflection in the glass, tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair and storm-gray eyes that had made grown men confess their sins without a single threat. A thin scar cut through his left eyebrow, a reminder of the night his enemies tried to kill him. They failed. His wife was not so lucky. Isabella. 3 years ago, her car had exploded on the highway. The police called it an accident. Rocco knew better. He had spent 2 years hunting down every person responsible. Now they were all dead. But Isabella was still gone. And now Sophia, their daughter, was slipping away too. Leukemia. The word had hit him harder than any bullet ever could. For 3 weeks, his little girl had been lying in a hospital bed, getting weaker every day, and there was nothing his money or his power could do about it. His phone rang. Dr. Nathan Cross. Rocco answered before the first ring finished. "Tell me." The doctor's voice was heavy. "Mr. Marino, Sophia's condition is critical. Her blood count has dropped dangerously low. She needs a transfusion within the next 24 hours. Or..." He paused. "I'm sorry. We're doing everything we can to find a donor. AB negative is extremely rare." Rocco's hand tightened around the phone until his knuckles turned white. "Find one. I don't care what it costs." He hung up and drove to the hospital like a man possessed. When he arrived, Sophia was awake but barely. Her small body looked so fragile against the white sheets, her skin pale as paper. Tubes and wires connected her to machines that beeped in a steady, terrifying rhythm. "Daddy?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "When can I go home?" Rocco sat beside her and took her tiny hand in his. He swallowed the tears that burned his throat. "Soon, princess. Daddy promises." Sophia smiled weakly and closed her eyes. The door opened behind him. Victoria Ashford walked in, dressed in designer black, her heels clicking against the floor. Isabella's older sister. She had the same dark hair, the same elegant features, but none of the warmth. "How is she?" Victoria asked, her voice perfectly measured. "Dying." Rocco did not look at her. "Unless we find a donor." Victoria placed a hand on his shoulder. "I'm so sorry, Rocco. If there's anything I can do." Her touch felt cold, calculated. Inside her mind, Victoria was already counting. If Sophia died, Rocco would be devastated, vulnerable, and his fortune, his empire, would need someone to help manage it. Someone like family, someone like her. The silence stretched between them, heavy and uncomfortable. Then Dr. Cross burst through the door, his face flushed with excitement. "Mr. Marino, we found one, a compatible donor. She's on her way right now." Rocco stood up so fast his chair fell backward. "Who?" "A woman from the Public Blood Center. Her name is Chloe Bennett." The black SUV pulled up to Northwestern Memorial's VIP wing, and Chloe stepped out into a world she no longer belonged to. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, fresh flowers in porcelain vases. The private medical wing looked more like a luxury hotel than a hospital. Security guards in expensive suits stood at every corner, their eyes scanning her worn clothes with barely concealed suspicion. Chloe clutched her thin jacket tighter around her body. Just this morning, she had woken up on a cot in a homeless shelter. Now she was walking through corridors that probably cost more to decorate than she would earn in a lifetime, if she ever earned anything again. A nurse in pristine white scrubs guided her to a private examination room. The woman's name tag read Patricia, and her smile was warm but professional. "Please sit here, Miss Bennett. We need to run some tests before the donation." Chloe sat on the examination table, feeling the crisp paper crinkle beneath her. She still had no idea whose child she was saving. They had only told her it was a 5-year-old girl with leukemia, desperately in need of AB-negative blood. That was enough for her. Patricia checked her blood pressure, then frowned. She checked it again. Her frown deepened. "Miss Bennett, when was the last time you had a proper meal?" Chloe hesitated. "I ate this morning." "What did you eat?" "A piece of stale bread from the shelter's donation bin, half a bruised apple she had found behind a grocery store." Chloe did not answer. Patricia sighed and pulled up a chair, sitting directly in front of her. "Your blood pressure is dangerously low. Your body mass index indicates severe malnutrition. Donating blood in your condition could cause you to faint, go into shock, or worse." She paused. "I cannot recommend this procedure." Chloe looked up, her eyes steady despite the exhaustion weighing them down. I used to be a nurse. I know exactly what the risks are. She took a breath. But somewhere in this building, there's a little girl who will die without my blood. A 5-year-old child who has her whole life ahead of her. Her voice cracked slightly. I have nothing left. Nothing. But I have this, and I'm not leaving until I give it to her. Patricia stared at her for a long moment. Then, slowly, she nodded. Lie back. We'll monitor you closely throughout the procedure. The needle slid into Chloe's arm, and she watched her blood flow through the tube. Dark red, the color of life, the color of hope. She grew weaker with each passing minute. Her vision blurred at the edges. Her fingers went cold, but she did not ask them to stop. She thought of Ethan, lying in a hospital bed somewhere, waiting for surgery that might never come. She thought of all the patients she used to care for, the ones who looked at her with gratitude in their eyes. This was who she was. This was all she had left. Meanwhile, outside the operating room on the other side of the wing, Rocco Marino paced like a caged animal. His men stood at a respectful distance, knowing better than to speak. Victoria sat in a designer chair, checking her phone with practiced indifference. But Rocco could not sit, could not breathe. For the first time in over a decade, he found himself praying, not to any god he believed in, just to the universe, to fate, to anything that might be listening. Please, not her, not my little girl. An hour passed, then 2. Finally, Dr. Cross emerged through the double doors, pulling off his surgical mask. Rocco stopped breathing. The transfusion was successful, the doctor said. Sophia is stable. She's going to be okay. Rocco's knees nearly buckled. He grabbed the wall for support, a sound escaping his throat that was half laugh, half sob. The donor, he managed. I want to thank her, pay her, whatever she wants. Doctor. Cross shifted uncomfortably. That's the thing, Mr. Marino. She already left, and she refused to accept any compensation. We offered her $10,000. She said no. We offered more. She still said no. Rocco stared at him, uncomprehending. Who refuses money? Her name is Chloe Bennett. She came from the public blood donation center downtown. That's all we know. Rocco turned to his right, where a massive man in a black suit stood waiting. Dante Russo, his head of security, his most trusted soldier. Find out everything about her, Rocco said quietly. Where she lives, where she works, her family, her history, everything. Dante nodded once. Consider it done, boss. 3 days later, Sophia Marino was sitting up in her hospital bed, demanding to go home. Daddy, I want my teddy bear. I want my room. I want pancakes. Her voice was still weak, but her eyes had regained their spark. The color had returned to her cheeks. The doctors called it a miracle. Rocco called it a debt. He sat beside her bed, holding her small hand, but his mind kept wandering back to the woman who had saved her. Chloe Bennett, a name without a face. A stranger who had given his daughter the most precious gift imaginable, then vanished without asking for anything. In his world, that did not happen. Ever. The door opened, and Dante stepped inside. His massive frame seemed to fill the entire doorway. In his hands was a manila folder, thick with documents. Boss, I have what you asked for. Rocco kissed Sophia's forehead. Daddy will be right back, princess. He followed Dante into the hallway, then took the folder and began to read. Chloe Marie Bennett, age 27, born and raised in Chicago, parents deceased, 1 sibling, younger brother Ethan Bennett, age 24. Rocco turned the page. Education, Bachelor of Science in Nursing from the University of Illinois, graduated with honors, licensed registered nurse, employed at Chicago General Hospital for 4 years, exemplary performance reviews, loved by patients and colleagues alike, until 6 months ago. Rocco's eyes narrowed as he read the next section. Terminated for alleged theft of controlled substances, specifically oxycodone. Investigation revealed pills hidden in her personal locker. License revoked pending further review. No criminal charges filed due to insufficient evidence, but professional reputation destroyed. She claims she was framed, Dante said. Our sources inside the hospital confirmed it. A colleague named Rachel Torres had a grudge, planted the drugs. Hospital covered it up to avoid scandal. Rocco kept reading. Following termination. Eviction from apartment for non-payment of rent. Vehicle repossessed. Savings depleted for brother's medical bills. Brother Ethan Bennett. Congenital heart disease. Requires surgery costing approximately $80,000. Currently postponed indefinitely due to lack of funds. Current status. Homeless. residing in shelters or on the streets. The final page was a surveillance photograph, Chloe sitting on a bench outside the blood donation center. Her clothes were threadbare, her frame painfully thin, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. But her eyes. Rocco stared at them for a long moment. They were not empty, not defeated. They were determined. She's been donating blood regularly for 5 years, Dante continued. Even after she became homeless, she never missed an appointment. The staff at the center say she shows up like clockwork. Always polite, always grateful. He paused. She's never asked anyone for help, not once. Rocco closed the folder slowly. In his world, everyone wanted something. Power, money, protection. Every favor came with a price tag, every kindness with strings attached. He had built his empire on that fundamental truth, but this woman, this homeless, penniless, broken woman, had nothing, less than nothing. Her brother was dying, she was starving, and when given the chance to save a stranger's child, she did it without hesitation, then refused payment. Who does that, boss? Dante waited. What do you want me to do? Rocco looked at the photograph one more time. Those eyes, something about them would not let him go. Find her, he said quietly. Bring her here. That night, the temperature dropped to 15 below zero. A winter storm swept through Chicago, turning the streets into rivers of ice and snow. Dante found Chloe huddled beneath the overpass on Lower Wacker Drive, wrapped in a thin blanket that did nothing against the brutal cold. Her lips were blue. Her body was shaking violently. She was barely conscious. He lifted her easily, like she weighed nothing at all. Hold on, he muttered. The boss wants to see you. Warmth. That was the first thing Chloe felt when consciousness slowly crept back into her body. Real warmth. Not the kind that came from huddling over a subway grate or pressing her body against a building's exhaust vent. This was soft, enveloping, complete. Her eyes fluttered open. For a moment, she thought she was dreaming, or dead. Perhaps both. The ceiling above her was painted cream white, with intricate molding that swirled in elegant patterns. A crystal chandelier hung in the center, its light soft and golden. The bed beneath her was enormous, the mattress softer than anything she had ever felt, the sheets smooth as silk against her skin. Chloe sat up abruptly, and her head spun. The room was larger than the entire apartment she used to rent. Tall windows lined one wall, covered with heavy velvet curtains. An antique dresser stood in the corner. A fireplace crackled with real flames, filling the space with comfortable heat. Where am I? Panic seized her chest. She threw off the covers and tried to stand, but her legs gave out immediately. She crashed to the floor, her weakened body refusing to cooperate. The door opened instantly. A woman rushed in. She was perhaps 58, with silver-streaked hair pulled back in a tidy bun and kind eyes that reminded Chloe of her grandmother. She wore a simple gray dress with a white apron. Easy. Child, easy. The woman knelt beside her, helping her back onto the bed with surprisingly strong arms. You've been unconscious for nearly 12 hours. Your body needs rest. Who are you? Chloe's voice came out hoarse, barely a whisper. Where am I? How did I get here? The woman smiled gently. My name is Maggie. I'm the housekeeper here. One of Mr. Marino's men found you half frozen under a bridge last night. Another hour out there and you would have died. Marino. The name meant nothing to Chloe. Maggie disappeared briefly, then returned with a tray. On it sat a bowl of steaming hot porridge, a cup of tea, and fresh bread with butter. Eat, she said firmly, setting the tray on Chloe's lap. You're nothing but skin and bones. When was the last time you had a proper meal? Chloe stared at the food. Her stomach screamed with hunger, but her mind screamed with suspicion. Why am I here? She asked. What do you people want from me? Before Maggie could answer, a shadow fell across the doorway. Chloe looked up, and her breath caught in her throat. The man standing there was tall, over 6 feet, with broad shoulders that filled the doorframe. His dark hair was combed back from a face that looked like it had been carved from stone. A thin scar cut through his left eyebrow, adding to the sense of danger that radiated from him like heat from a furnace. But his eyes, they were gray, like storm clouds, and as they met hers, Chloe saw something she did not expect. Not cruelty, not coldness, something almost like gratitude. Leave us, Maggie, he said quietly. The housekeeper nodded and slipped out, closing the door behind her. The man walked slowly into the room. Each step was measured, controlled. He stopped at the foot of the bed and looked at Chloe for a long moment. You saved my daughter's life, he said finally. I wanted to thank you. The pieces clicked together in Chloe's mind. The hospital, the emergency transfusion, the 5-year-old girl with leukemia. This was her father. Chloe forced herself to sit up straighter, ignoring the dizziness that threatened to pull her back down. "I don't need thanks," she said. Anyone would have done the same. Something flickered in his gray eyes. No, they would not, especially not someone starving under a bridge in the middle of a blizzard. The silence between them grew heavy, charged with something neither could name. Then, from somewhere down the hallway, came the sound of small feet running on hardwood floors. A tiny figure appeared in the doorway, dark curls bouncing, eyes wide with curiosity. "Daddy?" Sophia looked from her father to the stranger in the bed. "Who is she?" Sophia stood in the doorway, her dark curls framing a face that still carried traces of illness. But her eyes were alive, sparkling with the innocent curiosity that only children possess. Rocco walked over and knelt beside his daughter. "Sophia, this is Chloe. She's the one who saved you. Remember when Daddy told you about the angel who gave you special medicine?" Sophia's eyes went wide. She looked at Chloe with something close to wonder. "You're my angel?" Before Chloe could respond, the little girl broke free from her father and ran toward the bed. She climbed up without hesitation and threw her small arms around Chloe's neck. "Thank you for saving me," Sophia whispered against her shoulder. "Daddy said I was very sick and an angel helped me get better. You're my angel." Something inside Chloe shattered. She had not cried when she lost her job. She had not cried when they took her apartment, her car, her dignity. She had not cried during those freezing nights under the bridge, when death seemed like a mercy. But now, with this tiny child clinging to her like she was something precious, the tears came. They poured down her cheeks in silent streams, months of pain and loneliness finally finding release. Her arms wrapped around Sophia's small body, holding her close. And for one perfect moment, nothing else mattered. Rocco watched from across the room, his expression unreadable. When Sophia finally pulled back, Chloe's nursing instincts kicked in automatically. She gently placed her hand on the girl's forehead, checking for fever. Her fingers found Sophia's wrist, counting the pulse. "Are you still feeling tired?" "Sweetheart?" she asked softly. "Any headaches? Does your tummy hurt?" Sophia shook her head happily. "I feel good now. The doctor said I'm getting better every day." Rocco's eyebrows rose slightly. The questions were precise. Professional. This woman knew exactly what she was doing. "Tell me a story," Sophia demanded suddenly, settling herself comfortably on the bed beside Chloe. "Daddy only knows one story and he tells it wrong every time." Chloe glanced at Rocco, uncertain, but he simply nodded. So, she began to speak. She told Sophia about a brave little princess who lived in a castle made of clouds. The princess had a magic garden where flowers could sing and butterflies granted wishes. When darkness came to threaten her kingdom, she discovered that the greatest magic of all was the love in her heart. Sophia listened with rapt attention, her eyes growing heavy as the story went on. By the time Chloe reached the happy ending, the little girl was smiling. Really smiling. Rocco could not remember the last time he had seen that smile. Maggie appeared silently at his side, watching the scene with knowing eyes. "Sir," she whispered, "Miss Sophia hasn't connected with anyone like this since Mrs. Isabella passed. Not even with me." Rocco said nothing, but his jaw tightened. When Sophia finally drifted off to sleep, Chloe carefully extracted herself from the little girl's grip. She stood on unsteady legs, facing Rocco. "I should go," she said quietly. "Thank you for your kindness, but I don't belong here. Stay." The word came out before Rocco could stop it. Chloe blinked. "What?" "Sophia needs someone during her recovery. Someone she trusts." He paused. "She trusts you." "Mr. Marino, I have nothing. I'm homeless. I'm nobody. I can't possibly, Chloe." Sophia's sleepy voice interrupted them. Her small hand reached out, finding Chloe's fingers. "Stay with me, please. I don't want you to go." Chloe looked down at the little girl, then at Rocco, then at the beautiful room around her, so different from everything she had known for the past 3 months. Her heart made the decision before her mind could argue. "Okay," she whispered. "I'll stay." That night, for the first time in 3 months, Chloe Bennett slept in a real bed, and for the first time in 3 years, the Marino mansion felt something it had forgotten: warmth. 1 week passed, and Chloe Bennett became part of the Marino household in ways no one had expected. Every morning, she woke Sophia with gentle songs and helped her wash up. She braided the little girl's hair into intricate patterns that made Sophia squeal with delight. She taught her to draw flowers and butterflies, their colorful artwork soon covering the refrigerator in the massive kitchen. Every afternoon, they played games in the garden when the weather permitted, or built blanket forts in the living room when it did not. Chloe checked Sophia's temperature 3 times a day, monitored her appetite, and made sure she took her medications on time. Every night, Sophia demanded that Chloe tuck her in and tell her a new story. The little girl had started calling her My Chloe and refused to fall asleep unless Chloe was sitting beside her bed. The mansion, once cold and silent, now echoed with laughter. Even Maggie noticed the change. "Haven't seen this house so alive since Mrs. Isabella was here," she remarked to Dante one evening. "That girl is something special." But not everyone was pleased. On the 8th day, a sleek black Mercedes pulled up to the estate gates. Victoria Ashford stepped out, her designer heels clicking against the cobblestone driveway, her eyes hidden behind oversized sunglasses. She found Rocco in his study, reviewing business documents. "Rocco, darling." She kissed the air near his cheek. "I came to check on Sophia. How is my precious niece?" "Better," Rocco replied without looking up. "Much better." Victoria settled herself into a leather chair, crossing her legs elegantly. "I heard you've taken in some charity case. A woman from the streets? Her name is Chloe. She saved Sophia's life." Yes. The blood donation." Victoria waved her hand dismissively. "Very noble. But surely you've compensated her by now. Why is she still here?" Rocco finally looked up, his gray eyes cold. "Sophia is attached to her. Sophia is 5. She gets attached to stray cats." Victoria leaned forward. "Rocco, listen to me. You cannot let some homeless nobody live in this house. What do you even know about her? She could be a thief, a drug addict, anything. She's none of those things. How can you be sure?" Victoria's voice sharpened. "Pay her off. Send her away. Hire a proper nanny, someone with credentials and references, not some vagrant." Rocco's jaw tightened. "Sophia needs her. Sophia needs stability, structure, not a woman who was sleeping under a bridge a week ago." Victoria stood, smoothing her skirt. "I'm only looking out for my niece, Rocco. That's what family does." She left the study with a practiced smile, but inside, her mind was racing. For the rest of the day, Victoria watched Chloe like a hawk watches a mouse. She observed how the woman interacted with Sophia, how she moved through the house, how the staff seemed to already accept her. It made her sick. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, Victoria crept into Rocco's private office. She knew where he kept his files. She had made it her business to know everything about this household, especially now that Isabella was gone and the fortune was vulnerable. Her manicured fingers flipped through folders until she found it. Chloe Bennett, background check. Victoria's eyes scanned the pages quickly. Former nurse, unemployed, brother with medical bills, homeless. Then she saw it. Terminated from Chicago General Hospital. Reason: theft of controlled substances. A slow smile spread across Victoria's face. Well, she murmured. "A criminal hiding in my brother-in-law's house. How convenient." She pulled out her phone and dialed a number she knew by heart. "It's Victoria. I need you to dig up everything you can about a woman named Chloe Bennett. She was accused of stealing drugs from Chicago General Hospital 6 months ago." She paused, her smile widening. "I want every detail, every witness, every piece of evidence." She ended the call and looked out the window at the darkened estate. "Enjoy your fairy tale while it lasts, little Chloe," she whispered, "because I'm about to wake everyone up." 2 weeks had passed, and Chloe Bennett had become woven into the fabric of the Marino household like a thread that had always belonged there. Sophia's health improved dramatically. Her blood count stabilized, her energy returned. The doctors called her progress remarkable. Rocco knew the truth. It was not just medicine healing his daughter. It was love. But while the days were filled with light and laughter, Chloe's nights told a different story. At 2 o'clock in the morning, the mansion was silent. Moonlight streamed through the tall windows, casting long shadows across the marble floors. Rocco walked down the stairs, unable to sleep, his mind heavy with business matters that refused to quiet themselves. He heard it before he saw her, soft crying, barely audible, coming from the kitchen. He found Chloe sitting at the small breakfast table, her face buried in her hands, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs. A cold cup of tea sat untouched before her. She did not hear him approach. "You cannot sleep either?" Chloe's head snapped up. Her eyes were red, her cheeks wet with tears. She wiped them quickly, frantically, as if ashamed to be caught in a moment of weakness. "Mr. Marino, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to disturb anyone. I'll go back to my room." She started to rise, but Rocco held up a hand. "Sit." It was not a request. Chloe sank back into her chair. Rocco walked to the counter, poured himself a glass of water, then sat down across from her. The table was small, intimate, closer than they had ever been. For a long moment, neither spoke. "What is troubling you?" he asked finally. Chloe shook her head. "It's nothing. Just bad dreams. You are a terrible liar." She almost laughed. Almost. The silence stretched between them, and then, slowly, the walls she had built around herself began to crack. "My brother," she whispered. "Ethan. He has a heart condition, congenital defect. He needs surgery, but it costs $80,000. I've been trying to save money for years, but then I lost my job, and—" Her voice broke. "He's getting weaker every day. The doctors say he doesn't have much time left." She looked down at her hands, unable to meet his eyes. "I used to be able to take care of him. I was his big sister. I promised our mother before she died that I would always protect him." A tear slipped down her cheek. "And now I can't even afford to keep him alive." Rocco listened in silence. "I will pay for the surgery." Chloe's head jerked up. "No, it's not a request. Mr. Marino, I can't." She shook her head firmly. "You've already given me too much. A roof over my head, food, clothes, a purpose. I can't take anything more from you. You saved my daughter's life. And I would do it again for nothing." Her voice was stronger now. "I didn't donate blood to get paid. I did it because it was right, because a child was dying and I could help." She met his gaze directly. "I won't let you turn that into a transaction." Rocco stared at her. In 36 years, he had never met anyone like this. In his world, everyone had a price. Everyone wanted something. Money, power, protection, favors. Every act of kindness came with invisible strings attached. But this woman, who had nothing, who was sleeping in his guest room out of charity, who had every reason to take whatever she could get, refused. "You are the strangest person I have ever met," he said quietly. Chloe smiled sadly. "I'm just someone trying to hold on to the last piece of dignity I have left." The clock on the wall ticked softly. Outside, the wind whispered against the windows. Neither of them moved to leave. They sat together until dawn broke over the Chicago skyline, talking about everything and nothing, about childhood dreams and adult disappointments, about loss and hope and the strange paths life takes. For the first time, they were not a mafia boss and a homeless woman. They were just two broken people, keeping each other company in the dark. 3 weeks, that was all the time Victoria needed to build her case. She arrived at the Marino estate on a Thursday afternoon, carrying a leather briefcase and wearing a smile that did not reach her eyes. She had requested a family meeting, and Rocco, though suspicious, had agreed. They gathered in the formal living room. Rocco sat in his usual armchair by the fireplace. Maggie stood near the door, her hands clasped in front of her. Sensing trouble, Victoria positioned herself at the center of the room, like a prosecutor preparing to deliver a verdict. "Thank you for making time for this, Rocco." Her voice dripped with false concern. "I know you're busy, but this couldn't wait. It's about the safety of our family, about Sophia." Rocco's expression remained unreadable. "Get to the point, Victoria." She opened her briefcase and pulled out a thick folder, placing it on the coffee table with theatrical precision. "I've done some research on the woman you've welcomed into your home, the woman who sleeps down the hall from your daughter." Victoria paused for effect. "And what I found is deeply disturbing." She flipped open the folder, revealing documents, photographs, official-looking papers. Chloe Bennett was fired from Chicago General Hospital 6 months ago. The reason? Theft of controlled substances. Oxycodone, to be specific. Victoria looked up, her eyes gleaming with triumph. "She's a criminal, Rocco. A drug thief, and you've let her live under the same roof as Sophia." Maggie's face went pale. Rocco said nothing. "I have witnesses," Victoria continued. "Former colleagues who saw the drugs in her locker, who are willing to testify that she was stealing and possibly selling them." She closed the folder. "You need to remove her from this house immediately, before she harms Sophia, before she steals from you." The room fell silent. Rocco turned to Maggie. "Bring Chloe here." 5 minutes later, Chloe walked into the living room. She knew immediately that something was wrong. The tension was thick enough to choke on. Victoria stood with her arms crossed, looking satisfied. Maggie's eyes were filled with worry, and Rocco's face was a mask she could not read. "Chloe," Victoria said sweetly, "we were just discussing your history. Care to explain why you were fired from your nursing job?" Chloe's stomach dropped, but she did not flinch. "I was accused of stealing medication," she said quietly. Oxycodone. Accused? Victoria laughed. They found the drugs in your locker. That's not an accusation. That's evidence. Chloe took a breath. When she spoke, her voice was steady, calm, without tears or desperation. I was framed. Victoria rolled her eyes. Of course you were. A colleague named Rachel Torres planted those drugs in my locker. She was jealous because patients liked me, because I received commendations she didn't. She had access to the medication room. She had opportunity. Chloe paused. But I had no way to prove it. The hospital wanted the situation to go away quietly. They gave me a choice: resign or face prosecution. I resigned. How convenient, Victoria sneered. It wasn't convenient at all. Chloe's voice hardened slightly. My brother was in the emergency room that same week. His heart was failing. I had to choose between fighting for my career and being there for him. She looked directly at Rocco. I chose my brother. Silence. I'm not asking anyone to believe me, Chloe continued. I have no evidence, no proof, just my word. She straightened her shoulders. If you want me to leave, Mr. Marino, I will. I won't beg. I won't argue. I'll walk out that door right now and never come back. The room held its breath. Victoria smiled, sensing victory. Then Rocco stood. He looked at Chloe for a long moment. His gray eyes searched her face, looking for something only he could see. Then he turned to Victoria. Do you know why I haven't said a word this entire time? Victoria's smile faltered. Rocco stood slowly, his tall frame casting a long shadow across the room. When he spoke, his voice was quiet, controlled, more dangerous than any shout. Dante investigated Chloe the day she arrived in this house. Victoria's triumphant expression flickered. I know everything about what happened at Chicago General Hospital, Rocco continued. I know that Rachel Torres had a grudge against Chloe for 3 years. I know that Torres was the only person with access to both the medication room and Chloe's locker on the day those drugs appeared. I know that 2 other nurses witnessed Torres behaving suspiciously that morning but were too afraid to speak up. The color drained from Victoria's face. I know that Chloe could have fought the accusation, and probably won, but her brother collapsed that same week, and she chose to be by his side instead of defending herself. Rocco's gray eyes were cold as winter steel, and I know, without a shadow of doubt, that she is innocent. Victoria opened her mouth, but no sound came out. What I do not know, Rocco said, taking a step toward her, is why you are so determined to destroy a woman who saved your niece's life. Rocco, you're being manipulated, am I? He cut her off sharply. Or are you the one doing the manipulating? Victoria, I'm trying to protect this family. Protect? Rocco's laugh was bitter. When Sophia was in the hospital dying, you visited once in 3 weeks. And do you remember what you asked me that day? Victoria went rigid. You asked about my will. You wanted to know what would happen to the estate if Sophia. He could not finish the sentence. Your 5-year-old niece was fighting for her life, and you were calculating your inheritance. That's not fair. Sophia calls Chloe every day. Chloe holds her when she has nightmares. Chloe checks her temperature and makes sure she takes her medicine and tells her stories until she falls asleep. Rocco's voice rose. What have you done for her, Victoria? What have you ever done except count the money you think you deserve? The silence that followed was deafening. Victoria grabbed her briefcase, her hands shaking with rage. You'll regret this, she hissed. When that woman shows her true colors, when she takes everything from you, remember that I tried to warn you. She stormed out of the room. Seconds later, the front door slammed so hard the windows rattled. No one moved. Then Rocco turned to Chloe, and his expression softened in a way Maggie had never seen before. I'm sorry, he said quietly. I'm sorry you had to hear those things, and I'm sorry I let it go on as long as I did. Chloe's eyes were red, but she had not cried. Not once throughout the entire ordeal. Why? She whispered. Why do you believe me? You barely know me. You have every reason to think the worst. Rocco was silent for a moment. Because I know how to read people. I've spent my entire life surrounded by liars and manipulators. I can spot them from a mile away. He paused. And because my daughter loves you, Sophia has always been able to see the truth in people, even when I couldn't. She saw something good in you the moment she met you. His voice dropped lower. She has never been wrong. Before Chloe could respond, the sound of small feet echoed from the hallway. Sophia burst into the room in her pink pajamas, her dark curls wild from sleep. She must have heard the commotion. She ran straight to Chloe and wrapped her arms around her legs, holding on tight. Chloe isn't leaving, right, Daddy? Her voice trembled. Please don't make her leave. She promised to teach me how to make cookies tomorrow. Rocco knelt down and placed a hand on his daughter's back. Chloe isn't going anywhere, princess. Sophia looked up at Chloe with those big, trusting eyes. Promise? Chloe knelt down too, pulling the little girl into a proper hug. I promise, she whispered. And for the first time in years, she meant it. 1 month passed, and the Marino mansion transformed into something it had not been in years. A home. Sophia's laughter echoed through the hallways every day now. Her cheeks had filled out, her energy had returned, and her latest blood tests showed remarkable improvement. The doctors reduced her hospital visits from weekly to monthly. The shadow of death that had hung over her for so long finally began to lift. And at the center of this transformation was Chloe. Every morning, they made breakfast together. Chloe taught Sophia how to crack eggs without getting shells in the bowl, how to flip pancakes without making a mess, how to measure flour with a cup instead of a handful. The kitchen, once pristine and unused, was now covered in flour dust and happy chaos. Every afternoon, they read books in the garden when the weather was warm, or painted watercolors in the sunroom when it rained. Sophia's artwork covered every available surface, stick figures and rainbows and houses with too many windows. Chloe saved every single one. Every evening, they ate dinner together, all 3 of them. This was perhaps the most remarkable change of all. For 3 years, Rocco Marino had eaten alone at his desk or not at all. Dinner was a business transaction, a meal consumed between meetings and phone calls, and the endless demands of his empire. Now, he came home early. Dante noticed it first, then the other men. The boss, who had always been the last to leave and the first to arrive, was suddenly rushing out of meetings at 6 o'clock, making excuses to skip late-night gatherings, finding reasons to be home. Maggie noticed it too. The master is changing, she told Dante one evening as they watched Rocco help Sophia set the table. Actually help, not just supervise. I haven't seen him smile like that since before Mrs. Isabella died. The meals were simple, chicken and vegetables, pasta with red sauce, nothing fancy. But the conversations were full of Sophia's endless questions, and Chloe's patient answers, and Rocco's quiet observations that occasionally made everyone laugh. He was learning to laugh again, really laugh, not the cold, calculated chuckle he used in business negotiations, but genuine laughter that reached his eyes and softened the hard lines of his face. One night, a thunderstorm rolled through Chicago. The lightning flashed bright enough to turn night into day. The thunder shook the windows in their frames. And Sophia screamed. Chloe was already running before she was fully awake. She threw open Sophia's door to find the little girl cowering under her blankets, sobbing with fear. She was not alone. Rocco stood in the doorway, still dressed in his shirt and trousers, clearly having rushed from his study. Their eyes met for a brief moment before both of them moved to Sophia's bed. I'm scared, Sophia whimpered. The sky is angry. The sky isn't angry, sweetheart, Chloe said softly, climbing onto the bed and pulling Sophia into her arms. It's just making noise, like drums in a parade. Rocco sat on the other side, his large hand gently stroking his daughter's hair. Nothing can hurt you here, princess. Daddy won't let it. Another crack of thunder. Sophia buried her face in Chloe's shoulder. Stay with me, she begged. Both of you, please. So they stayed. The 3 of them lay together on Sophia's small bed, the little girl nestled safely between them. As the storm raged outside, Sophia's breathing slowly steadied. Her grip on Chloe's shirt loosened. Her eyes fluttered closed. In the darkness, Rocco's gaze found Chloe's across the pillow. Thank you, he whispered, for bringing laughter back into this house. Chloe's heart skipped. I only do what I can. You do more than you know. The silence that followed was charged with something neither of them could name. Chloe closed her eyes, but sleep would not come. She lay there listening to Sophia's soft breathing, painfully aware of Rocco's presence just inches away, and she realized, with a sinking feeling in her chest, that she was developing feelings she had no right to have. Feelings for a man who was her employer. Feelings that could only lead to heartbreak. After that stormy night, Chloe began to pull away. She woke up earlier, made breakfast for Sophia, and retreated to her room before Rocco came downstairs. She scheduled their activities around his absence, always finding reasons to be elsewhere when he was home. At dinner, she spoke mostly to Sophia, avoiding Rocco's eyes. She was drawing lines, building walls, protecting herself from feelings that could only end in pain. Rocco noticed. He noticed how she excused herself whenever they were alone, how her smile dimmed when he entered a room, how she suddenly found urgent tasks to attend to whenever he tried to have a conversation. He did not understand why. Had he done something wrong? Said something to offend her? Every time he tried to ask, she slipped away like water through his fingers. Meanwhile, Victoria had been watching, waiting, planning. 2 weeks after her humiliation, she called Rocco with a proposal. A charity gala at the mansion. A chance to improve the Marino family's reputation in high society. For Sophia's sake, she said. For Isabella's memory. Against his better judgment, Rocco agreed. The night of the gala, the mansion filled with Chicago's elite, politicians, business leaders, old money socialites. Crystal chandeliers blazed with light. Champagne flowed like water. Servers in white gloves circulated with silver trays. And among them, wearing a simple black dress instead of her usual clothes, was Chloe. Victoria had arranged everything. We're short-staffed, she had told Maggie that morning. The girl can help serve. She should earn her keep, shouldn't she? Chloe had agreed without protest. She did not want to cause trouble, did not want to give anyone more reasons to question her presence in this house. So she served. She carried trays of champagne through crowds of people who looked right through her. She refilled glasses for men who never said thank you. She smiled politely at women who whispered about her behind their hands. One elderly woman, dripping with diamonds, snapped her fingers at Chloe like she was summoning a dog. You there. More wine. Quickly. Yes, ma'am. Chloe bowed her head and poured, her hands steady even as her heart burned with shame. From across the room, Victoria watched with satisfaction. But she had not counted on Sophia. The little girl had been asleep upstairs, but the noise of the party woke her. She wandered down in her nightgown, looking for Chloe, and found her bent over a table, being scolded by a red-faced man for spilling a single drop of champagne. Chloe, Sophia ran to her, pushing past guests who gasped at the child's appearance. What are you doing? Why are you dressed like that? Sophia looked around at the servers, then back at Chloe, confusion filling her eyes. You're not a maid. You're my Chloe. Victoria swooped in, grabbing Sophia's arm. Sophia! Go back to bed this instant. But Chloe is the help. Victoria's voice was ice. She works here. That's all she is. A servant. Sophia's eyes filled with tears. No! She saved me. She's family. She is not family. Victoria's composure cracked. She's a homeless nobody who got lucky. Now be quiet and go upstairs. Sophia burst into tears. Chloe dropped to her knees, pulling the sobbing child into her arms. It's okay, sweetheart. It's okay. I'm not upset. Please don't cry. But even as she comforted Sophia, her own heart was breaking. The front door opened. Rocco walked in, still in his business suit, having rushed back from a meeting when Dante called him. His eyes swept across the room, taking in the scene instantly. The crying child. The woman in servant's clothes, kneeling on the floor. The guests watching like spectators at a circus. His face went dark as a thundercloud. He strode across the room, his footsteps echoing in the sudden silence. Every guest shrank back from the fury radiating off him. He stopped in the center of the room. This party is over. His voice was quiet, but it carried to every corner. Everyone. Get out. Now. The guests fled like rats from a sinking ship. Within minutes, the grand ballroom was empty. Champagne glasses sat abandoned on tables. Half-eaten appetizers grew cold on silver trays. The string quartet packed their instruments in record time, not daring to meet anyone's eyes. Only Victoria remained. She stood her ground as the last guest hurried past, her arms crossed, her chin lifted in defiance. When the front door finally closed, she turned to face Rocco. Have you completely lost your mind? Her voice was sharp as broken glass. Do you have any idea what you've just done? Those were the most influential people in Chicago, and you threw them out like garbage because of some homeless woman? Rocco's expression was carved from stone. Her name is Chloe. I don't care what her name is. Victoria stepped closer, her heels clicking against the marble floor. You're making yourself a laughingstock, Rocco. A mafia boss defending a street beggar in front of society's elite? People are going to talk. Your business partners are going to question your judgment. Your enemies are going to see weakness. Let them. She's using you. Can't you see that? She wormed her way into this house with her sad story and her big eyes, and now she's got you wrapped around her finger. Rocco's hands clenched into fists at his sides. Using me? His voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. Chloe has never asked me for a single dollar. She refused money when I offered it. She tried to leave when she thought she was causing problems. She serves my daughter with more love and dedication than any of the expensive nannies I've hired over the years. He stepped toward Victoria, and for the first time, she backed away. Now tell me, Victoria, what have you ever done for this family that wasn't calculated to benefit yourself? How many times have you visited Sophia out of genuine love, not obligation? What exactly do you want from us? Victoria's mouth opened, but no words came out. The silence was answer enough. "Get out of my house," Rocco said quietly. "And don't ever come back." Victoria's face contorted with rage. "You'll regret this, Rocco. When that woman destroys everything, when she takes your money and breaks your daughter's heart, remember this moment. Remember that I warned you." She grabbed her purse and stormed toward the door. "You're choosing a nobody over your own family," she screamed over her shoulder. "Isabella would be ashamed of you." The door slammed behind her, rattling the crystal chandelier. Rocco stood motionless for a long moment, his chest heaving. Then he turned and walked toward the stairs. He found Chloe in her room, shoving clothes into the same worn bag she had arrived with. Her eyes were red, but she was not crying. Her movements were mechanical, determined. "What are you doing?" She did not turn around. "Leaving. It's better for everyone." "Chloe, Victoria is right." Her voice cracked slightly. "I don't belong here. I'm causing problems between you and your family. Sophia is getting too attached to me, and when I eventually have to go, who said anything about you leaving?" She finally turned, her eyes glistening. "I'm nobody, Mr. Marino, a homeless woman you took pity on. You've been kind, more kind than anyone has ever been to me, but I can't keep pretending I fit into your world. Tonight proved that." Rocco crossed the room in 3 long strides. "Stop." His voice was firm but gentle. "Stop calling yourself nobody. It's the truth." "No." He reached out and took her hand. "The truth is that you're the best thing that's happened to this house in 3 years. The truth is that my daughter smiles because of you. The truth is that I—" He stopped himself. "You are not worthless," he said instead. "Don't ever say that again. You deserve to be here more than anyone I know." Chloe's tears finally fell. A small figure appeared in the doorway. Sophia stood there in her nightgown, tears streaming down her face, clutching her teddy bear to her chest. "Please don't go, Chloe." Her voice was barely a whisper. "I need you." She looked at her father. "We need you, right, Daddy?" Rocco met Chloe's eyes. "Yes," he said softly. "We do." Chloe stayed, but the walls she had built around her heart grew higher. She threw herself into caring for Sophia with even more dedication than before. She woke earlier, worked harder, and found endless tasks to occupy her time. Anything to avoid being alone with Rocco, anything to prevent her heart from hoping for things she could not have. Rocco gave her space, though it clearly cost him. He watched her from doorways, started conversations that she politely ended, and retreated to his study with a look in his eyes that she tried not to understand. 2 weeks passed in this careful dance. Then the phone call came. Chloe was in the kitchen, helping Maggie prepare lunch, when her cell phone buzzed. The number was from Chicago Memorial Hospital. Her blood ran cold. "Miss Bennett? This is Dr. Williams. I'm calling about your brother, Ethan. What happened? Is he okay? He collapsed this morning at his friend's apartment. His heart. I'm afraid his condition has deteriorated significantly. We've stabilized him for now, but he needs surgery. Immediately." Chloe gripped the counter to keep from falling. "How long does he have?" 72 hours. Maybe less. The surgery costs $80,000, and we'll need payment confirmation before we can proceed. $80,000. She had nothing, less than nothing. "I understand," she heard herself say. "I'll figure something out." She hung up and stood frozen in the kitchen. Maggie asked if she was all right, but Chloe barely heard her. Her mind raced through impossible options. Sell what? Borrow from whom? 3 days. She had 3 days to find a miracle. That night, she did not sleep. She searched online for loans, assistance programs, anything. Every door led to a dead end. By morning, she had decided she would leave the mansion, find whatever work she could, and beg if she had to. Her pride meant nothing if Ethan died. She was packing her bag when her phone rang again. "Miss Bennett, this is the billing department at Chicago Memorial. I'm calling to inform you that the full amount for Ethan Bennett's surgery has been paid." Chloe's heart stopped. Paid? By whom? The payment was made anonymously. "The surgery is scheduled for tomorrow morning. Your brother is asking for you." Chloe dropped the phone. She knew. Of course she knew. She found Rocco in his study, reviewing documents as if nothing had happened. He looked up when she burst through the door, his expression carefully neutral. "You paid for Ethan's surgery." It was not a question. Rocco leaned back in his chair. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't." Her voice shook. "Don't lie to me. $80,000 appeared from nowhere to save my brother's life. I know it was you." Silence stretched between them. "Why?" Tears spilled down her cheeks. "Why would you do that?" Rocco stood slowly, walking around his desk toward her. Because I could, he said simply, and because you never would have asked. I'll pay you back. Every single dollar. I don't care how long it takes. No. Rocco, this isn't a debt, Chloe. He stopped in front of her, close enough to touch. This is what family does for each other. I'm not your family. You're Sophia's family. His gray eyes held hers, and for once, there was no mask hiding what lay beneath. That makes you my family too. Chloe's composure shattered. The tears she had been holding back for months finally broke free. All the fear for Ethan, all the loneliness, all the shame and struggle and desperate hope came pouring out in violent sobs. Rocco did not hesitate. He pulled her into his arms and held her as she cried. His hand cradled the back of her head, his chin resting against her hair. He said nothing. He just held her, steady and warm and real. And for the first time since she had lost everything, Chloe Bennett let herself be held. 1 week later, Ethan Bennett opened his eyes in a recovery room at Chicago Memorial Hospital. The surgery had been a complete success. The doctors called it remarkable. The damaged valve had been replaced. His heart was beating strong and steady, and with proper rehabilitation, he would make a full recovery. When Chloe walked into his room, he smiled weakly but genuinely. Hey sis, heard you found yourself a guardian angel. Chloe burst into tears and hugged him so tightly the nurses had to remind her he was still recovering. 3 days later, against all of Chloe's protests, Rocco insisted that Ethan come to the mansion to recuperate. He needs proper care, Rocco said simply. We have the space. Maggie will help. It's settled. So Ethan came home with Chloe. Sophia was fascinated by him immediately. Are you Chloe's brother? You look like her. Do you like pancakes? Can you draw? Are you going to live here forever? Ethan laughed, though it made his chest ache. One question at a time, little one. Within days, Sophia had adopted him as her personal entertainment. She brought him books to read together, showed him all her artwork, and insisted on checking his temperature just like Chloe had done for her. Ethan called her his tiny nurse, and she beamed with pride. One afternoon, while Sophia napped upstairs, Ethan caught Chloe alone in the garden. Sis, can I say something? Chloe sat beside him on the stone bench. Of course, that man, Rocco. Ethan looked at her carefully. He looks at you differently. Chloe's cheeks flushed. What are you talking about? I'm serious. I've been watching him. When you walk into a room, his whole face changes. When you laugh, he smiles. When you're not around, he keeps looking at the door like he's waiting for you. Ethan, stop. He loves you, Chloe. And honestly, Ethan grinned. I think you love him too. Chloe opened her mouth to argue, but no words came out. The next morning at breakfast, Sophia delivered the final blow. She was eating her pancakes when she suddenly looked up at her father with innocent curiosity. Daddy, why don't you marry Chloe? Rocco choked on his coffee. Chloe dropped her fork. Then she could be my mommy for real, Sophia continued, oblivious to the chaos she had caused. And we could all live together forever. Wouldn't that be nice? Maggie suddenly found urgent business in the pantry. Ethan developed a suspicious coughing fit. Rocco and Chloe could not meet each other's eyes. That night, a knock came at Chloe's door. She opened it to find Rocco standing there, his usual composure cracked around the edges. He looked almost nervous. Rocco Marino, who made grown men tremble, looked nervous. May I come in? Chloe stepped aside. He entered slowly, then turned to face her. For a long moment, he said nothing. I need to tell you something. Chloe's heart pounded. About what Sophia said this morning, Sophia was right. The world stopped. I love you, Chloe. His voice was rough, like the words were being torn from somewhere deep inside. I think I've loved you since that night I found you crying in the kitchen. No, before that, since you refused my money at the hospital and looked at me like I was just a man, not a monster. Rocco, her voice trembled. I was homeless. I had nothing. I'm nobody. You are everything. He stepped closer, his gray eyes burning into hers. You saved my daughter. You brought light back into this house. You made me remember what it feels like to be human. His hand reached up to cup her face. You saved me, Chloe. I don't know if I can. Tell me you don't feel it, he whispered. Tell me I'm imagining this. Tell me to stop, and I will. Chloe could not speak, because she could not lie. Rocco leaned down and kissed her. It was soft at first, tentative, a question waiting for an answer. And when Chloe kissed him back, it became something more. Something that felt like coming home. From somewhere in the hallway came a muffled squeal of delight. I knew it! They broke apart to see Sophia's face peering through the crack in the door, her eyes shining with joy. I knew Daddy loved Chloe. I knew it. I knew it. I knew it. 1 month of happiness. For 30 beautiful days, the Marino mansion became everything it was meant to be. A home filled with love, laughter, and the warmth of a family finally whole. Rocco and Chloe did not hide their relationship. They held hands at dinner, stole kisses in the hallway, and fell asleep together watching movies with Sophia curled between them. The staff whispered approvingly. Maggie cried happy tears. Even Dante, stoic as ever, allowed himself a small smile when he saw his boss laughing again. Sophia adapted fastest of all. Mommy Chloe, she called her now. The first time she said it, Chloe had cried for an hour, happy tears, the kind she had forgotten existed. Ethan recovered steadily, watching his sister's transformation with quiet joy. You deserve this, he told her one night. You deserve every bit of it. But happiness, in Rocco's world, always came with a price. Victoria had not been idle. From her penthouse apartment downtown, she had spent weeks making calls, pulling strings, and nursing her hatred into something sharp and deadly. She reached out to people Rocco had wronged over the years. Rivals, enemies, men who would pay any price for leverage against the Marino Empire. She found willing partners in the Castellano family. The woman, Victoria told them over an encrypted phone line, Chloe Bennett, she's his weakness. Hurt her, and Rocco will give you anything you want. The plan was set. Sophia's 6th birthday was approaching, and Chloe wanted to find the perfect gift, a special dollhouse she had seen in a shop downtown. She drove into the city alone, despite Rocco's protests. I'll be fine, she laughed. It's just a quick trip. She never made it to the store. The black van came out of nowhere. 2 men grabbed her before she could scream. A cloth pressed against her face, sweet and chemical, and the world went dark. At the mansion, Rocco's phone rang. Mr. Marino. The voice was cold, mechanical. We have something that belongs to you. Rocco's blood turned to ice. $10 million. Full withdrawal from the Southside territories. You have 48 hours. Refuse, and we send her back to you in pieces. The line went dead. Rocco did not breathe, did not move. Then, slowly, something ancient and terrible awakened behind his eyes. Sophia ran into the room, sensing something wrong. Daddy? Where's Mommy Chloe? Rocco knelt down, his voice steady despite the storm raging inside him. Some bad people took her, Princess, but Daddy is going to bring her home. Promise? I promise. Dante appeared at the door, his face grim. Boss. We traced the call, and we found something else. He paused. Victoria met with the Castellanos 2 weeks ago. She gave them information about Chloe, the safe houses, her schedule, everything. Rocco's jaw clenched so hard his teeth ached. Find Chloe. Find Victoria. Whatever it takes. Miles away, in an abandoned warehouse near the industrial district, Chloe sat tied to a chair. Her lip was split. Her cheek was bruised. But her eyes were dry. The men who took her paced around, nervous and jumpy. They had expected her to cry, to beg, to break. Instead, she sat in silence, watching them with an expression that made them uncomfortable. Your boyfriend better pay up, one of them sneered. Otherwise things are gonna get ugly. Chloe lifted her chin. Rocco will come, she said quietly. And when he does, you'll wish you had never been born. The man laughed, but there was fear in it. Outside, the sound of engines rumbled in the distance. Getting closer, the convoy of black SUVs surrounded the abandoned warehouse like wolves circling prey. Rocco stepped out first, ignoring Dante's protests. He wore no bulletproof vest, carried no shield, just a gun in his hand and murder in his eyes. Boss, let us go in first. No. Rocco's voice was ice. She's mine to save. The assault began. Rocco led the charge through the main entrance, his men flanking from every side. The rusted doors exploded inward. Gunfire erupted immediately, muzzle flashes lighting up the darkness like deadly fireworks. Rocco moved through the chaos like a force of nature. He had spent years building an empire through intimidation and strategy, rarely dirtying his own hands. But tonight was different. Tonight, they had taken his heart. A bullet grazed his shoulder. He barely felt it. Blood soaked through his shirt, warm and wet, but he did not slow down. He kicked open door after door, searching, hunting, desperate. The Castellano men fell one by one. Some surrendered, some tried to run, none escaped. Then Rocco found her. In a small room at the back of the warehouse, Chloe sat tied to a metal chair. Her face was bruised, her lips swollen, her clothes torn. But she was alive. She was alive. Their eyes met across the room. Rocco. He crossed the distance in 3 strides, dropping to his knees before her. His hands trembled as he cut through the ropes, binding her wrists and ankles. "Are you okay? Did they hurt you?" "I'll kill every last one of them, I swear." Chloe reached up and touched his face with her freed hands. "I'm okay." Her voice was hoarse but steady. "I knew you would come." Rocco pulled her into his arms so tightly she could barely breathe. His whole body shook. This man who had faced down enemies and death threats without flinching was trembling like a leaf. "If I had lost you," his voice broke, "I don't know how I would have survived. I can't lose anyone else. I can't lose you." Chloe felt something wet against her neck. Tears. Rocco Marino was crying. She pulled back just enough to see his face, to wipe the tears from his cheeks with her bruised fingers. "I'm here," she whispered. "I'm not going anywhere. I promise." He kissed her then, desperate and relieved, and full of everything he could not put into words. Outside, Dante's men had rounded up the survivors, and among them, held firmly by 2 guards, was Victoria Ashford. Rocco walked out with Chloe, supported against his side. When Victoria saw them, her composure finally cracked. "Rocco, please," she struggled against the men holding her. "I'm family. I'm Isabella's sister. You can't do this to me." Rocco stopped in front of her. His gray eyes were empty of mercy. "Isabella would be ashamed of you. You tried to destroy the woman my daughter loves. The woman I love." He leaned closer. "You're not family. You're nothing." Victoria waited for the gunshot, for the order that would end her life. It was what any mafia boss would do. Instead, Rocco turned to Dante. "Call the police. Give them everything. The kidnapping, the conspiracy, all of it. Let her rot in prison." Victoria's face went white. "Prison? Rocco, no. Goodbye, Victoria." He turned his back on her and walked away, Chloe safe in his arms. The drive home took forever, and no time at all. When the car finally pulled through the mansion gates, Sophia was waiting on the front steps, Maggie and Ethan holding her back. The moment she saw Chloe step out of the car, she broke free. "Mommy, Chloe." She flew across the driveway and launched herself into Chloe's arms, sobbing. "I was so scared. I thought the bad people took you away forever." Chloe held her tight, tears streaming down her own face. "I'm here, baby. I'm right here. I'm never leaving you again." Rocco wrapped his arms around both of them. And there, in the soft light of dawn breaking over Chicago, the 3 of them stood together. A family, finally whole. 6 months later, on a perfect spring morning, Chloe Bennett stood before a mirror in a white silk wedding gown. She barely recognized herself. The dress was elegant but simple, exactly what she had wanted. Delicate lace sleeves, a flowing skirt, tiny pearls sewn along the bodice. Her hair was swept up with white flowers woven through the curls. Her makeup was soft, natural, designed to enhance rather than hide. She looked like a princess from one of the stories she told Sophia. Maggie stood behind her, tears streaming freely down her weathered cheeks. "Oh, child." Her voice trembled. "You are the most beautiful bride I have ever seen." Chloe turned and took the older woman's hands. "Maggie, I don't know how to thank you. For everything. For being kind to me when I was nobody. For treating me like family before I had any right to that word." Maggie pulled her into a careful hug, mindful of the dress. "You were always family, dear. We just had to wait for the paperwork to catch up." A knock at the door announced Ethan, looking healthy and handsome in his new suit. His heart surgery scar was hidden beneath crisp fabric, his smile bright and genuine. "Ready, sis?" Chloe nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. As they walked toward the garden where the ceremony awaited, Ethan squeezed her arm gently. "Mom and Dad would be so proud of you," he said softly. "After everything you went through, everything you sacrificed for me. You deserve this, Chloe. You deserve every single moment of happiness." Tears spilled down her cheeks. She thought of her mother, who had died when she was 16, her father, who had followed 2 years later, the lonely years of working and struggling and surviving, the false accusations, the homeless shelter, the freezing nights under the bridge, and now this. The garden doors opened. White chairs lined the aisle, filled with faces that had become dear to her. Maggie's family, some of Rocco's trusted men and their wives, Ethan's friends, a small gathering, intimate and warm. Sophia stood at the front in a pink dress covered with ribbons and bows. She held a basket of rose petals, practically vibrating with excitement. When she saw Chloe, she squealed with delight and began scattering flowers with enthusiastic abandon. And there, at the end of the aisle, stood Rocco. He wore white, not his usual black suits, not the dark colors of his dangerous world. White, like a promise of new beginnings. When he saw Chloe walking toward him, his gray eyes filled with tears he did not bother to hide. The ceremony was brief and beautiful. When it came time for vows, Rocco spoke first. I used to think power was everything. Money, influence, control. I built an empire on those things, and I thought they made me strong. His voice was rough with emotion. Then you came into my life with nothing except a good heart, and you gave me everything I never knew I needed. You taught me that family isn't about blood. It's about choice. I choose you, Chloe. Today, tomorrow, and every day after. Chloe wiped her eyes before speaking. I spent years believing I wasn't worthy of love, that I was broken, damaged, less than others because of what I had lost. She looked at Sophia, then back at Rocco. You and Sophia proved me wrong. You showed me that worth isn't measured by what you have, but by how you love. I will love this family with everything I am, for as long as I live. You may kiss the bride. Rocco pulled her close and kissed her tenderly as applause erupted around them. Sophia pushed between them, tugging at Chloe's dress. Now you're my real mommy, right? Forever and ever? Chloe knelt down, gathering the little girl into her arms. Forever and ever, my love. Rocco wrapped his arms around them both. 3 people, 3 broken hearts made whole, 1 family, 5 years later. Sunday morning, sunlight streamed through the windows of the Marino mansion, painting everything in shades of gold. The kitchen was alive with chaos and laughter. Pancake batter splattered across the counter. Orange juice glasses clinked together. The smell of fresh coffee filled the air. Chloe stood at the stove, flipping pancakes with practiced ease. She had changed in 5 years, but only for the better. Her face was fuller, her eyes brighter, her smile easier. On her finger gleamed a wedding band that had never once left her hand. She had gotten her nursing license back 2 years ago, after Rocco's lawyers uncovered evidence proving Rachel Torres had framed her. Now she ran a free clinic downtown for homeless people. The same shelter that had once given her a cot now sent patients to her care. Rocco sat at the table, bouncing a giggling 3-year-old boy on his knee. Daniel had his father's dark hair and his mother's kind eyes. He was their miracle, born on a snowy December night that reminded Chloe of how far she had come. Rocco himself had transformed. He had stepped back from most of his underground operations, focusing instead on legitimate businesses, real estate, restaurants, a charity foundation in Isabella's name. He still commanded respect in Chicago, but now it came from admiration rather than fear. Sophia burst into the kitchen, now 10 years old, tall and beautiful and full of energy. She had aced her exams, joined the school art club, and never stopped asking questions about everything. Mom, Uncle Ethan is teaching me to play guitar. Ethan followed behind her, healthy and happy, working as operations manager for one of Rocco's companies. He had a girlfriend now, a kind woman named Sarah who fit perfectly into their unusual family. She's a natural, Ethan grinned, ruffling Sophia's hair. They all sat down together, passing plates and sharing stories and talking over each other in the comfortable way of families who truly belong together. Sophia looked at Chloe thoughtfully. Mom, did you ever think life would be like this? Chloe paused, her heart swelling with emotion. No, sweetheart. I never imagined anything like this. She reached out and squeezed her daughter's hand. But I learned something important. Life doesn't give us what we want. It gives us what we need. Rocco leaned over and kissed her cheek, Daniel still bouncing in his arms. And I needed you, he said softly. More than I ever knew. Chloe looked around the table, at the husband who had seen her worth when she had nothing, at the daughter who had called her family before anyone else would, at the brother she had nearly lost and the son she never dreamed she would have. Then she looked out the window at the beautiful spring morning. Somewhere out there was a bridge where she had once slept in the freezing cold, a shelter where she had eaten stale bread, a hospital where she had given her blood to save a stranger's child. She had started with nothing. Now she had everything. And it had all begun with one simple choice: to give when she had nothing left to give. Family is not about blood. Family is about the people who choose to stay when you have nothing left. And when you give with your whole heart, life gives back a whole world. Do you believe in destiny? Which part of this story touched you the most? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. We would love to hear from you. If this story moved your heart, please share it with someone you love. Sometimes the people around us need to hear that kindness always finds its way back. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another heartwarming story. We share new videos every day, and your support means the world to us. How does this story connect to your own life? Have you ever experienced unexpected kindness from a stranger? We truly want to hear the feelings deep in your heart. Thank you so much for watching until the end. We wish you good health, happiness, and peace in your daily life. May love always find its way to you. Goodbye for now, and we will see you in the next video.